This has been a wild election year, and the final week has been a frenzy. Both candidates were barnstorming the swing states.
We are not going back.
Kamala broke it, and we will fix it.
It really could come down to a few thousand votes out of 160 million votes cast.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
Former President Trump has tried again and again to convince voters that things were much better when he was president, and that only he is capable of returning America to the kind of prosperity that he promises.
I will end inflation. I will stop the invasion of criminals coming into our country.
Vice President Harris has tried repeatedly to signal two things. First, that she's not going to be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency, that she represents this new generation. And second, that she will reach across the aisle and work with Republicans to try to solve problems facing Americans, like immigration and the economy.
I will work with everyone, Democrats, Republicans, and independents.
She is trying to convince former Trump voters, independent women, suburban men, that people who have supported Trump in the past, that it's okay to support a Democrat.
I see the promise of America in the women who refuse to accept a future without reproductive freedom.
On the issue of abortion, this is an issue that Vice President Harris has really tried to own. She is saying that because of former President Trump, women have fewer rights now than they did before he was president. Trump's final message was more dark, and this is consistent with the way he's run for the presidency in 2016 and 2020.
Because who would want to have millions of people coming into our country? Many of them are murderers. Many of them are terrorists. We're going to do the largest deportation in the history of our country. We're going to get all of these criminals out.
Several weeks ago, he had a publicity stunt at a McDonald's, and he presented himself as kind of an everyman.
I like this job. I think I might come back and do it again.
Fast forward a week later, he has this big rally at Madison Square Garden, and that's where things kind of took a sharp turn. And the remarks specifically about Puerto Rico by a comedian that turned a lot of Americans off.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
That was a situation where the Trump campaign actually had to distance themselves from someone who was at their rally.
I love Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico loves me. I don't know anything about a comedian.
Vice President Harris, her biggest issue in her closing arguments actually didn't come from anything she said. It came from President Biden.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
And that is something that he immediately tried to clean up, but it really kind of electrified former President Trump and his supporters.
Joe Biden finally said what he and Kamala really think of our supporters. He called them garbage. No way. No way.
Trump doesn't really stay on message. This is something that he's been doing since 2016. He made comments about women and how he would protect them.
I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them.
One of the things we've heard a lot from former President Trump in the final days is he is arguing that the election is already being rigged and that votes are being stolen.
We must stop a radical left agenda with a landslide that is too big to rig.
And he even said over the weekend that he should never have left the White House after he lost the election in 2020. That's something that I don't think I've heard him say before.
We had the safest border in the history of our country the day that I left. I shouldn't have left. I mean, honestly.
The polls show this race to be so close that no one should be surprised by either outcome.
We're ready to get out the vote. We're ready to win.
But it's ours to lose. Does that make sense to you? It's ours to lose.
We should not overlook states that don't seem like swing states today. There are millions of voters in this country who are going to vote possibly in surprising ways. Anything can happen. And that's what everyone is preparing for in the election this year.